The ocean is anything but forgiving. Shipbuilding tech keeps advancing year after year, yet even today we're no real match for the fury of nature. Out at sea, disasters don't just happen, they unfold in ways that are terrifying, tragic, and sometimes downright jaw-dropping. We're not here to dwell on doom, but let's be honest. Some of these shipwreck stories are so wild, you'd think they were pulled from a movie script. So let's look at 15 of the most surprising ship accidents ever happened. Number Quince, USS San Francisco. On January 8, 2005, the USS San Francisco, a Los Angeles-class nuclear submarine, was traveling at full speed nearly 525 feet beneath the surface when it smashed into an uncharted undersea mountain 360 nautical miles southeast of Guam. The impact was super devastating. The forward ballast tanks were ruptured, the sonar dome destroyed, and 98 crew members were injured. One sailor, Joseph Allen Ashley, lost his life. What's remarkable is that the pressure hull held intact, and the nuclear reactor remained stable, sparing the submarine from complete destruction. Limping back to Guam under its own power took 2 days. The investigation revealed navigational errors and over-reliance on outdated charts. Commander Kevin Mooney, who was in charge at the time, was removed from his post and formally reprimanded. 6 senior crew members were also demoted. Though the vessel was eventually repaired, the incident remains one of the most serious peacetime accidents involving a U.S. Navy nuclear sub, underscoring how even the most advanced military vessels are still vulnerable to basic human oversight beneath the ocean. Number Vierzan, MV Prestige. The sinking of the MV Prestige off the coast of Spain in November 2002 triggered one of the worst oil spills in European history. At 26 years old, the single-hulled tanker was already considered outdated and vulnerable. While caught in rough seas, the vessel suffered a structural failure and began to leak. Carrying 77,000 tons of heavy fuel oil, it posed an immediate environmental threat. But instead of allowing it to dock, Spain, Portugal, and France all denied entry. Left to drift for days, the ship eventually split in two and sank, releasing over 50,000 tons of oil into the Atlantic. The spill contaminated thousands of kilometers of coastline, killed marine life, and devastated the fishing industry. Jurisdictional blame was passed around. A Greek company owned the ship. It was registered in Liberia and flew the Bahamian flag. No country took full responsibility. What remains is a lesson in political failure and maritime neglect, an accident that might have been preventable if swift action had replaced hesitation. Number 13. SS Princess Alice. The SS Princess Alice was once a popular Thames River paddle steamer, ferrying passengers on day trips from London into the countryside. But on September 3, 1878, her journey ended in one of Britain's worst inland waterway disasters. As she sailed back toward the city, she collided with the iron-hulled coal ship Bywell Castle near Galleon's Reach. The impact tore through her wooden frame, and the vessel broke in two, sinking within minutes. Over 650 poor people died, many of them women and children. Those who didn't drown faced another horrific danger. The Thames at the time was filled with raw sewage from nearby treatment plants. It's believed the toxic water accelerated the deaths of many who would have otherwise survived. Despite widespread public outrage, no one was held fully accountable. The disaster exposed massive flaws in river traffic regulations and sparked reforms in maritime safety, especially for crowded pleasure boats. The Princess Alice remains a grim chapter in London's maritime history, where joy turned to tragedy just minutes from home. Alright guys, now let's talk about Number 2. Nishin Maru Incident. In February 2013, tensions between environmental activists and Japanese whalers reached a boiling point in the Southern Ocean. The Nishin Maru, Japan's largest whaling vessel, was repeatedly confronted by ships from the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society, including the Steve Irwin and Bob Barker. After days of standoffs and water cannon exchanges, the Nishin Maru's captain made a reckless move, steering directly into the smaller protest ships in an attempt to force them aside. The collisions damaged all three vessels, but, miraculously, no one was seriously injured. The incident nearly escalated into an international crisis. Australian naval forces monitored the situation closely, fearing it might spark a military response if any nation took action. Fortunately, the Nishin Maru retreated after crossing out of Australian-claimed waters. The event left behind diplomatic tension, widespread outrage, and renewed calls for international maritime regulation. What could have been an environmental dispute at sea became a dangerous test of restraint, and a rare moment when modern maritime confrontation pushed dangerously close to open conflict. Number 11. Delta Mariner Bridge Collision. In 2012, the Delta Mariner, a 5-story tall cargo vessel tasked with transporting components for NASA's rockets, collided with the Ferry Bridge in western Kentucky. Despite its towering height and the clearly visible structure ahead, the captain guided the 312-foot ship directly into a section of the bridge, tearing through steel and dropping a 300-ton chunk into the Ohio River. Incredibly, no cars were on that section of the bridge at the time of impact, or the story could have ended in tragedy. The ship itself wasn't seriously damaged, but the road traffic bridge was partially destroyed and out of use for several months. Investigations revealed that all navigation lights on the bridge were functioning and visibility was clear, yet the crew attempted the passage anyway. With a cargo load crucial to space operations, the delay forced rescheduling of deliveries. The only explanation ever offered was poor judgment. Despite being one of the most avoidable marine blunders in recent U.S. history, no major accountability was taken beyond procedural reviews. Number 10. SS Grand Camp. On April 16, 1947, the port of Texas City became the site of one of the deadliest industrial accidents in U.S. history when the SS Grand Camp exploded. The French-registered cargo ship was loaded with ammonium nitrate, a chemical commonly used as fertilizer, but also extremely explosive under the right conditions. A fire had broken out in the hold, and despite attempts to smother it, it ignited the volatile material. The explosion obliterated the Grand Camp, destroyed nearby buildings, and created a shockwave felt over 40 miles away. The blast was so powerful it shattered windows in Houston. Over 500 people were killed, thousands injured, and much of the port was leveled. Fires raged for days. What began as a routine cargo loading operation escalated into chaos due to poor storage practices and miscommunication. The disaster led to sweeping changes in how chemicals were stored and transported in American ports. Today, Texas City still bears the scars of that day, with memorials standing in place to honor the lives lost in a split second of devastation. Number 9. SS Selma. Sitting partially submerged off Pelican Island in Texas is the SS Selma, a 500-ton relic from a bold wartime experiment. Launched in 1919, the Selma was one of a handful of concrete ships built during World War I as the U.S. faced a steel shortage. She served briefly as an oil tanker in the Gulf of Mexico, but her career ended abruptly in 1920 after striking a jetty near Tampico, Mexico. The damage was extensive, a massive tear in her hull, and all attempts to repair her failed. With no better use for the damaged vessel, she was deliberately grounded in a dugout channel just off the Texas coast and left there. Over the decades, various redevelopment ideas came and went: oyster farms, fishing piers, even floating museums. None took hold. Now the Selma quietly erodes, her broken hull visible from the shore. She may not have changed history, but her concrete frame still floats, proof of an era when even the most unorthodox ideas were given a shot in the name of wartime necessity. Number 8. MSC Diamond. The MSC Diamond, once a sleek Greek cruise liner, met its end in 2007 near the volcanic island of Santorini. The ship had just completed a sightseeing tour when it struck a well-mapped reef in the caldera, just off the coast and in full daylight. Despite having advanced navigational tech, the crew veered too close to shore. Water poured in fast. Over 1,500 passengers were evacuated, but 2 French tourists never made it out. In the days that followed, questions swirled about whether the crew responded quickly enough and if the reef had been marked properly on navigational systems. The ship sank within 24 hours, settling upright on the seabed. Efforts to recover it failed, and it still lies submerged, leaking pollutants into the sea. Environmental concerns continue to grow, but officials hesitate on full-scale removal due to costs and risks. What was meant to be a picturesque cruise through one of Greece's most beautiful spots became a cautionary tale of overconfidence and one of modern tourism's most haunting shipwrecks. Number 7. MS Riverdance. On January 31, 2008, the MS Riverdance, a roll-on/roll-off ferry, was en route from Warren Point to Heysham when rough seas turned a routine crossing into a high-stakes emergency. A wave struck her broadside, shifting her cargo and destabilizing the ship. Listing heavily, the ferry drifted toward the English coastline. Despite distress signals and rescue efforts, she couldn't be saved. Eventually, she ran aground near Blackpool, striking the shore at a steep angle. Containers tumbled onto the beach, and curious locals were quick to collect whatever they could carry. Though no one was injured, the damage was extensive. Over the next few months, engineers attempted to refloat her, but the position and structural stress made it impossible. By October that year, she was dismantled on site. During that time, thousands visited the wreck, snapping photos of the stranded ferry as if it were a temporary monument. For a short while, the Riverdance overshadowed even Blackpool's famous tower as the town's most talked-about attraction, proof that some shipwrecks make their biggest impression after the engines stop turning. Number 6. Submarine Explorer. Built in 1866, the Submarine Explorer was decades ahead of its time. Designed by Julius H. Kroll, it was one of the first functioning submersibles capable of both diving and resurfacing independently. While revolutionary, the design had serious flaws. Passengers and crew frequently suffered from decompression sickness, which at the time wasn't fully understood. Despite the risks, the vessel was shipped to Panama's Pearl Islands to harvest oysters. The idea was simple: dive, collect, surface, repeat. But the constant exposure to pressure changes made everyone sick. Eventually, the vessel earned a reputation for being cursed. No one wanted to board it anymore. In 1869, after just 3 years of operation, it was abandoned on a beach and left to rust. More than a century later, it still sits there, weather-beaten, partially buried in sand, and slowly collapsing. Though its career was short and its success debatable, the Submarine Explorer holds a unique place in maritime history as a bold leap into undersea navigation before anyone truly knew how to survive it. Alright guys, now let's head over to number 5. Tek Sing. The Tek Sing, which means true star in Chinese, was a massive 3-masted junk ship, often referred to as the Titanic of the East. In February 1822, it left Amoy, now Xiamen, for Batavia, now Jakarta, packed with porcelain cargo and over 1,600 passengers and crew. The ship's captain attempted a risky shortcut through the Gaspar Strait in the South China Sea, unaware of the treacherous reefs that lay beneath. The decision proved fatal. The Tek Sing struck the reef and sank swiftly, killing an estimated 1,500 people. The wreck was largely forgotten until 1999, when salvage teams uncovered a massive trove of porcelain at the site, many pieces perfectly intact despite nearly 2 centuries underwater. The recovered artifacts now sit in museums and private collections, but the human cost remains staggering. It's considered one of the deadliest maritime disasters in history. The Tek Sing story is a stark reminder of how one decision at sea, however small it may seem, can determine the fate of hundreds in a single moment. Number 4. Captain JP3. In January 2019, the Captain JP3, a dinner cruise vessel moored along the Hudson River, became an unexpected hazard during a freak polar vortex. The combination of rapidly rising water levels and sudden ice jams overwhelmed its moorings, setting the boat adrift without anyone on board. It wasn't alone. Several vessels in the Albany area broke free, but the Captain JP3 had the worst luck. It first collided with the Congress Street Bridge, damaging the bridge and its own hull. Moments later, it slammed into the Livingston Avenue Amtrak bridge and got wedged tightly against it. The chaos unfolded during peak morning traffic, forcing authorities to shut down 6 bridges across upstate New York. While no one was injured, the drifting ship triggered a logistical nightmare. The vessel was eventually secured and removed, but the timing and scale of disruption were significant. The event remains a bizarre collision of bad weather and bad timing, highlighting how even docked ships can become a serious problem when nature decides to flex. Number 3. Millesimo Quinto. Doña Paz. The MV Doña Paz disaster in 1987 remains the deadliest peacetime maritime accident ever recorded. The passenger ferry, operated by Sulpicio Lines, was massively overcrowded, carrying more than 4,000 people despite being certified for just over 1,500. Late one December evening, while crossing the Tabla Strait in the Philippines, it collided with the oil tanker MT Vector. The tanker was carrying petroleum products, and the collision sparked a massive fireball. Flames spread across the water, setting the sea ablaze. Survivors described jumping into burning oil, only to be pulled under by panicked swimmers or scorched by floating flames. Rescue took hours, and by then over 4,000 lives were lost. Only 26 people survived. Investigations revealed shocking safety lapses. Vector was operating without a license, and Doña Paz lacked basic communication equipment. Families were left with no clear answers and little compensation. The wreck now rests at the bottom of the strait, not far from the shore. It stands as a grim symbol of corruption, neglect, and lives lost to sheer preventable failure. Number 2. Sweepstakes Schooner. Resting quietly in the clear waters of Big Tub Harbor, Ontario, the wreck of the Sweepstakes has become a local legend. Originally built in 1867, this Canadian schooner was hauling coal when it ran into trouble near Cove Island in August 1885. Although the crew managed to summon help and the ship was towed back to harbor, the damage was already too severe. Water had flooded the hull, and the vessel slipped beneath the surface before repairs could begin. Remarkably, the wreck remains largely intact to this day, preserved by the cold, calm water. Tourists flock to the site every year to see the vessel beneath the surface, either by glass-bottom boat or through scuba diving tours. At one point, diving was banned after it became clear that oxygen bubbles were accelerating the ship's decay. While it never gained fame as a working coal ship, Sweepstakes achieved something rarer, becoming a part of the environment it once sailed through, frozen in time just beneath the water's surface. Number 1. RMS Taylor. Before the Titanic, there was the RMS Taylor, a state-of-the-art, iron-hulled steamship launched in 1853 by the White Star Line. Just days into her maiden voyage from Liverpool to Australia, she ran into trouble. Navigational errors and a malfunctioning compass led her straight into the rocks off Lambay Island near Ireland's coast. She struck the reef at full speed, her anchor chains snapping under pressure as waves battered the hull. The ship began to sink rapidly. Of the roughly 650 people on board, only around 280 survived. Most of the victims were trapped below deck or drowned while trying to swim ashore in freezing conditions. The tragedy exposed serious design flaws and poorly tested equipment, issues that would haunt the White Star Line again decades later with the Titanic. Although the Taylor was hailed as a technological marvel, her loss showed that innovation without testing was dangerous. The wreck is now a protected site, still scattered along the island's edge, bearing the weight of a voyage that was doomed from the very start. If you've enjoyed watching this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.